All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the BamaCollegeTake. Let's go. Huge weekend ahead. It's conference championship week. Bama made it to the SEC championship. We went in Auburn. We did what we needed to do. We won. And so yeah. I think I saw somewhere today that if we lose the SEC championship game, then we might not make the playoffs. So we really need to win. I think personally, if we lose, we may be in. So we'll just have to wait and see. Go into Atlanta and win, then no problem, we're in. So got to get it done. Other than that, just one piece of news that I thought was pretty interesting. 4-star cornerback. I think his name's Zavon Griffin. No, I'm getting that confused with Xavier Griffin. Zavon Gibson from Gadsden, Alabama, decommitted from Alabama, and then within an hour, I think within 45 minutes, recommitted to Alabama. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but just thought it was pretty interesting. I may touch on it if more news comes out because I've never seen anything like that. So, but other than that, we're gonna break down the Auburn game, get some film studying in, and then I got 2 guest pickers this week for the Gameday Pick'ems for conference championship games. We're going to do the Sun Belt conference championship game, the American Conference, Big 12, ACC, Big 10, SEC. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. It's all to Isaiah Horton. But 122 passing yards. There's missed a deep ball to Jeremy Bernard early. Things definitely could have been better in the passing game. So I'm gonna give Ty a B- for this game. Wasn't great by all means, not at all. A lot of stuff to clean up on, especially after this game. Just didn't look, just wasn't clicking. But if there's one takeaway from Ty Simpson in this game, it's not that it wasn't that he's a good athlete or he can make good reads or put the ball wherever he wants to, because we know that. We know Ty Simpson can put the ball wherever he needs to on a pass and it can make great reads, and we know these things. But that's not what I learned from him this game. I learned from him this game that he's a freaking warrior. This guy battled all game and did whatever it took to win the game, and we did. And so Ty Simpson's just a warrior. Over the course of a college football season, you need someone who is truly a quarterback. And by that, I kind of mean, not someone, you need someone to make the right reads and the right throws and not make bad decisions and run the offense and be operationally sound and just be a field general, right? But in crunch time, in a close game, that's going to happen in the playoffs or maybe even next week in Atlanta versus Georgia. Yes, you need those things, but you also need a dang football player at the helm of the offense. You need a dang football player. And if you don't think that about Ty Simpson after this game, then you don't know anything about football, or you must have not watched the game. Ty Simpson is a freaking warrior. We saw this in Ty, especially on that 4th down play. And then another time when he's getting rushed and nobody was blocked in the A gap, and he throws a perfect ball to Isaiah Horton in the back of the end zone to score a touchdown. So it feels really good to have that box kind of checked off, because every championship caliber type team has that. Any team that has ever won a championship game has had that at quarterback, has had someone like that at quarterback. And it feels really good to have that box checked off. Ty is just a freaking warrior. Now, specifically this game, like I said, it wasn't great, so I'm still going to go B-. But, man, did he play his butt off. And great to see. The rushing game. How about the rushing game? It finally showed up a little bit all season. Jan Miller does get hurt. He goes out of the game on crutches, which was really tough to see. But nonetheless, it was still there. Daniel Hill had some great runs. Ty wasn't bad with his legs. It's kind of an underrated part of his game. We didn't have Kevin Riley. I don't know if he'll be in Atlanta, but I would love to see kind of a 1-2 punch with the explosiveness of Kevin Riley and the physical toughness of Daniel Hill. moving forward. And I would also love to see AKD, or the true freshman. I know we don't really want to burn his red shirt, but I don't care. Like, our run game hasn't been there all year. It was finally here in this game. We finally did the things we needed to do. And if Jam Miller's going to be out, I want AK Deer. Give me AK Deer. So I would just love to see that moving forward. Run game, I'm going to go with an A. I don't think there might have been a couple other games I kind of said that. But this was truly a game where the rushing game was very productive, and not a lot of people expected it. We had a low game in the pass game, and a much better game in the rush game. So yeah, I'm gonna go with an A. I loved what I saw from and it wasn't really like, there was a couple run plays we had that were good, and it wasn't really credited to the O-line a whole lot. Like, there was a couple missed blocks, but our backs still found ways to get 5 or 6 yards on those busted plays still. So that was great to see. And if we can get this going, this is going to be a really dangerous team. So, moving on here, receiving, Isaiah Horton, offensive player of the game. Isaiah Horton, 3 touchdowns, hat trick. This guy's awesome. I'm so glad we got him in the transfer portal for Miami. He's looked great all season. He looks good. He's looked good all season. And this is the kind of guy you need in a close rivalry game like this. Someone who's a bit of a veteran. He's been in these type of games before. He knows what to do. We saw that with Isaiah Horton. Loved what I saw from Isaiah. 3 touchdowns. Offensive player of the game. Other than that, Lautier Brooks didn't have a bad game. Had a drop pass. But it gets really cold. When it gets really cold, the football kind of it gets hard. It's tough. Like, it actually gets kind of like frozen almost. That was definitely a factor in this game. But it should have been caught, and I think it was on a crucial down. But other than that, the true freshman has continued to look good all season. Looked good in this game. Jeremy Bernard wasn't as productive as usual, especially in a like I said, you kind of need a veteran guy who's been in these type of games before. We had that in Isaiah Horton. We didn't really see it with Bernard in this game, which is perfectly fine. He still had a good game. He's been our guy all season, right? So not worried too much about that. Other than that, not too many people involved in the pass game like usual. Normally there's 14, 15 different guys on this, but there's not this. And one name you don't see on here is Ryan Williams. Not really sure what's going on with that. Not sure if he's injured, but no Ryan Williams. So that's a bit concerning. I'm not gonna lie. But nonetheless, with the receivers, I'm gonna go. I cannot remember if I just said a grade or not, but regardless, if I did, I'm gonna go with A- for the receivers. All right. Defense. Whew. Our defense, when we saw the same thing last year, our defense kind of struggled at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, boom, just turn the flip. Just flip the switch is what I'm trying to say. Our defense is a imperative reason why we won this game. Our defense looked amazing. Deontay Lawson looking like the old D-Law in this game. James Smith got James Smith and Yonje Pierre, and even Keon Sabb was in there pressuring. They had quarterback hurries in this game. Justin Jefferson was solid. Solid in the middle of this game. Kyle Green didn't have a great game, but still solid there. Zabian Brown. How about Zabian Brown? I said in last week's episode, Cam Coleman was probably going to be the X factor for Auburn, like he's been all year, and Zabian Brown absolutely shut him down. In that episode, I also said that I would put Dijon Lee on Cam Coleman, the true freshman, because he's 6'4", much more length than Zabian Brown does. He covered him some snaps in the game, but for the most part, it was Zabian Brown, and he was targeted 4 or 5 times with Zabian guarding him. Did not. I think it might have caught 1 ball. Other than that, Zabian Brown had him on block this whole game. Zabian Brown looked really good. And if it was not for this guy right here, Bray Hubbard, Zabian Brown probably would have been the player of the game, the defensive player of the game, in my opinion. because he shut down Cam Coleman, who is a phenomenal football player, and it was great, just great cornerback play from Xavier Brown. But because of this guy right here, Bray Hubbard, we had 2 turnovers that I'm about to talk about here in a minute. We had 2 turnovers, both from Bray Hubbard when we needed them. Super clutch, plays super aggressive, hard hitter, just a great, kind of hidden gem that we've had all year. I love what I'm seeing from Bray Hubbard. He's the defensive player of the game. Also got Quay Russaw back. That was awesome to see him out there. He was kind of limited in his stats, which was not surprising to see since he's coming off injury. But still, nonetheless, it was really good to see him. Dijon Lee had a good game. Xavier Mincy, there was a play where Xavier Mincy messed up pretty bad. We're probably gonna look at that later, but other than that, I'm gonna give the defense an A. I'm really considering an A plus. If it wasn't really for a couple plays, I would have gone A plus. But other than that, because we were down 17-0, and it's not really on the defense that it became a close game like it was, but it's not entirely on the offense. So I'm gonna go with an A for the defense. But other than that, I'm just gonna keep it on the screen here while I talk about this. We won this game, very similar, just pretty much the same way that Oklahoma beat us, right? And I said it on the last episode that it kind of feels like the Oklahoma game for us, and then that is exactly how we beat Auburn. We beat Auburn the same way that Oklahoma beat us, and by that I mean we were +2 in the turnover margin against Auburn, and that is the reason we won. I said last week in last week's episode it's gonna come down to turnovers, and it did. And we were +2 in the turnover margin against Auburn. That's why they beat us. Oklahoma was +3 in the turnover margin against us, and that's why they beat us. Like I said, we were +2 in the turnover margin against Auburn. Oklahoma was +3 in the turnover margin against us. So it didn't matter that we outgained Oklahoma in every other category. It didn't matter that we had more total offensive yards versus Oklahoma because they produced more turnovers. They were +3 in the turnover margins. That's why they beat us. Nothing else mattered because of that. It didn't matter that we outgained them in every other category. It just didn't matter because they were +3 in the turnover category, and the same one with Auburn. So since we were +2 in the turnover margin against Auburn, it didn't matter that Auburn had 259 passing yards and we had 122. It didn't matter that we only had 6 more rushing yards than Auburn did. We were both very similar in rushing yards this game. We had 6 more rushing yards than Auburn. Not huge of a difference, but it didn't matter because we were +2 in the turnover margin. It didn't matter that we were 4 for 17 on third down and Auburn was 8 for 19. They converted twice as many third downs as we did, but it didn't matter. It doesn't matter because we were +2 in the turnover margin. We were +2 in the turnover margin, and we had less penalties. Those 2 things right there is exactly why we won this football game. Turnover margin and penalties. That's why we won. Bottom line. And not to mention there were 4 other forced fumbles that we produced, that 4 other forced fumbles from Auburn. That the ball was everywhere, was on the ground everywhere. For Auburn, and also a muff punt. We only recovered 1 of those fumbles, but the ball was on the ground almost every other play, and that sounds just like us versus Oklahoma. We had 5 fumbles versus Oklahoma, and they recovered 2 of them. It could have been much worse, but the ball was everywhere when we played Oklahoma for us, and the ball was on the ground everywhere for Auburn when on Saturday. So. Looking forward, we're really beat up. Ty didn't really look 100%. Like I said, 122 passing yards, couple reads that he just didn't make that he normally makes. Ty doesn't look really 100. Ryan Williams, like I said, is kind of an afterthought right now. He's just a ghost. Where's not sure what's going on there. And then Josh Cuevas being hurt was obviously. Was an obvious impact in this game. We had so many different tight ends. We played 2 true freshman tight ends, Caleb Edwards and Marshall Pritchett. So we're banged up, but we still found a way to win, and that's really all that matters. We found a way. We needed to find a way to win, and we did. Our offense hasn't really clicked the last couple weeks, and it's kind of going to remain that way until we get some rest. We're just so beat up, but our guys are so resilient. But we're just beat to death right now. We need some rest. And then one other thing, um, the I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Pronouncing this right. The amygdala is the part of the brain that processes fear and kind of provides that extra sense of emotion in your. That's what the amygdala does. That's that part of the brain. That's what that does. It's broken for this Alabama team. It's broken, and I love that. I love everything about it because when we get into these crunch times in the playoffs and these crucial moments in the fourth quarter in a close game in a one possession game, maybe even next weekend in Atlanta versus Georgia, like I said, if we're in the playoffs and we get in those crunch moments like this, there's not going to be any nerves. We aren't going to have any nerves really because we've been in so many games like that this season. This was another one. That part of the brain for this team is completely broken in my opinion, and I love it. I love it. We're 4-1 in one score games. There's been 5 games for us this season. There's been one score games, and we're 4-1 in them. And we had every opportunity to get weird in Jordan Hare on Saturday, but our composure and competitiveness mattered, and we didn't flinch. And because we're seeing this in the regular season, it's gonna help us out later on in the playoffs and maybe next weekend in Atlanta. So that's really all I got to say about the Auburn breakdown. I know it might have been kind of lengthy, so I'm going to try to keep the film session short. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the film breakdown. All right, welcome to the film breakdown of the Auburn game. I'm only going to do 2 clips from this game just for the sake of time. The first play I want to look at here, I want to look at one defensive play and one offensive play. This is the defensive play. Wasn't a good one. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and say that. Right now the score, there's 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We're up 20-13. And this is what happened. Auburn runs. You got an empty set. This is the heavy side over here, and they just run simple, just curl routes on this side right on the inside. It's a curl and a go. It's a curl and a go, but on both sides. This guy right here runs a go. He runs a curl. Or maybe this is the one who runs the curl up top there. This is what those top receivers do. Yeah, middle guy. Okay, middle guy runs. So you're gonna have a go, a curl, a slant, a curl, and a go. That's what you're gonna have right here. And this ends up, Ashton Daniels hits the curl route. He hits it, and it's a gain of. It's a gain of about 4 yards, right? It's a gain of about 4 yards. And then it ends up being a gain about almost, I don't even know, 60 or 70, 50, 60, 70 yards. And the reason that happens is because right here, this is Xavier Mincy. He's a redshirt freshman, very talented recruit I believe he's from Florida. I think he's from Florida. I'm not sure. I know he was between us and Florida State, and he ended up committing here to the University of Alabama. But anyway, he comes in way too fast, just with the wrong angle, just way too aggressive. And you want to be aggressive on defense. Don't get me wrong, but you can't overcommit when you're making a tackle. You can't overcommit on the angle. That's what he does. He overcommits on the angle, and instead what he should do right there is break down. He chop his feet, break down, and make the tackle. And it's a gain of 4 on it's 3rd and 9, I think. It's 3rd down. Yeah, it's about 3rd and 9. And, like I said, it's a 4-yard gain. Now you got 4th and 5. Just break down, make the tackle. Break down and make the tackle. Instead, he overcommits. And then, after he overcommits, the true freshman Dijon Lee takes a terrible angle right there and allows the cutback lane. He's the outside contain, and he lets the guy outside of him. With the terrible cutback lane, we saw him do that versus Tennessee. And we broke a play down like that where Dijon Lee took a terrible angle and allowed the cutback. But, there's no way this should end up being a gain of how many yards that it ends up being. It should be a 4-yard gain. 4-yard gain. Xavier Mincy right here should break down, make the tackle, and it's 4th and 5. He looks ridiculous, if we're being honest. He's just flimsy, overcommitting, running way too fast, and then Dijon Lee lets the guy outside of him with a terrible angle. But shout out to Monty Jackson. This is a guy who Dijon Lee, the true freshman. He's a senior, I believe, and Dijon Lee, a true freshman, beat him out for the starting position. He could have been drafted last year. He decides to come back. He gets beat out for his starting spot. But he saves this play. Auburn ended up scoring like 1 or 2 plays later. But it's like we said a couple episodes ago. This defense, the motto is just make them snap it again, make them snap it again, make them snap it again. Who knows? Maybe our defense gets a goal line stand. Because we have a really good red zone defense that we've talked about on this podcast before. We have a really good red zone defense, and like I said, the motto is make them snap it again. And so he gave our defense a chance. Incredible hustle, great hustle on that play, and pushes the guy out at about the whatever it was, the 5 or 6 probably something. So just great hustle from Damani Jackson right there. So let's look at this play from this other angle real quick, and then we'll go into our other play. Just watch Xavier Mincy right here. Just watch him. He just overcommits and doesn't break down. Like not once does he break down, and he just keeps running and just misses a tackle. And then Dijon Lee right here just takes a terrible angle and lets the cutback. And then great hustle from Damani Jackson to save a huge touchdown right there. So let's go ahead and get into the next play. Just that's a 4-yard gain that turns into a 60 or 70-yard gain. Cannot let that happen. Then Xavier Mincy's a young guy, but got to clean that up. All right. Welcome to the offensive play. I'm going to break down really quick. We just saw the defensive play and the pursuit drill from Damani Jackson. They work on that. That's one thing I didn't mention in that drill. They work on that. You'll line up in practice every single day and run a pursuit drill. And basically what it is just there's a spot on the field where everyone's in their position. There's a spot on the field everybody's got to run to. That's the football. And that's pursuit drill is the far side corner runs all the way across the field to stop the football. They work on that. But anyway, great job from Damani right there. So this play right here, gutsy. 4th and 2, tie ball game, 20-20, the Iron Bowl. Coach DeBoer lets them hang. He shows them off right here. I adore this play call. I adore the decision to go for it on 4th and 2 because, statistics say go for it, and everyone, or not go for it, statistics and everyone else says kick the field goal, right? Kick the field goal, take the 3 points, get a defensive stop. Coach Kalen DeBoer says, F you. I don't care. I'm going for it. Tells the field goal unit to stand on the sideline and watch Ty Simpson throw a dot to Isaiah Horton. Like I said, I adore this play call. It shows a lot of trust and confidence in Ty and this team. And also, kind of shows that Kalen DeBoer is like, I'm going to ride with my guys and ride with my defense to get a stop, It just shows a lot of trust and confidence in Ty and this team, and then the players see that. They really do. So I'm really glad it worked out. If it didn't work out, it's a whole different story. People are probably furious, but Coach DeBoer lets them hang. I adore the play call. So with that, let's go ahead and watch the play. So Isaiah Horton. Let me get my mouse right here. Isaiah Horton's right here. So Jeremy Bernard is going to run kind of a little arrow route. He's going to go out and kind of so 2 really key players on this play that not a lot of people saw. That's why I want to break it down. Great play, right? 2 things not a lot of people saw. Jeremy Bernard kind of picks off this Isaiah Horton's guy right here. They're in man. Jeremy Bernard kind of picks him off, slows him down, gives Isaiah Horton enough time to get open right here. And then Caleb Edwards, true freshman tight end. Watch what he does on this play. First let's watch Jeremy Bernard, okay? Jeremy Menard, he kind of picks off number 23 for Auburn right there. That's on Isaiah Horton. Watch him. Gets in his way, slows him down, lets Isaiah Horton get open. All right. On the other side, true freshman tight end Caleb Edwards right here. Watch what he does. So Jeremy Menard slows this guy down and gets Isaiah Horton open. So okay. Everyone right here is in zone except the linebackers. This linebacker is in zone, and then this linebacker is supposed to be on the tight ends over here. He's in over this other tight end right here. He's in zone. So these two guys are in zone, right? So Caleb Edwards, look what he's doing. He's not letting this guy get into his position. He's not letting this guy get into the middle right here. Jeremy Menard slows this guy down that's on Isaiah Horton. This guy, Caleb Edwards, is slowing this guy down right here, not letting him get into his spot, which allows Isaiah Horton to get open right here. So, and then you got Ty. I'm not really sure what the first read was right here. Caleb Edwards, I guess Marshall Pritchett was to try to get the first down. If he's open, kind of slip out. And Caleb Edwards kind of slows that guy down, but more importantly, Pritchett's the first read there, which I don't really like that. I'm going here immediately. If these two guys are picking those defenders off, I'm going there immediately. So just kind of wanted to break that down. Not a lot of people saw that, and like I said, gutsy play call from Coach DeBoer here. I love it. Love that play call. We'll see it better right here. Isaiah, watch Jeremy Menard pick his guy off or slow this guy down right here. Caleb Edwards on the other side right here. Blocking. Not blocking because that would be illegal. Just kind of getting in the way of those two guys there. It allows Isaiah Horton to get open. Ty Simpson throws a dot in there, zips it in there. Small, kind of a tight window, gets it in there. That play changes the whole game. Momentum right back in our favor. The players love it when a coach goes for a fourth down and you get it. So with that, let's go ahead and that's all the film I got. Try to keep it short. Only try to do two. Kind of was talked a lot about them, but those were really good plays that needed to be talked about. So let's go ahead and get into the pick'ems with our guest pickers. All right, welcome to the Game Day Pick'ems segment. We're here with our two special guest pickers this week. Returning on the show this week, we got Mr. Wesley Davis. How you doing, Wesley?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be back. I'm undefeated still, so just excited to keep that streak going. I'm doing pretty good though.
Yeah, that's good. You were first, ever since episode 5 that you did. You were undefeated 5-0, and then last week's picker, I have it on a good faith basis. At the end of this episode, we're going to see that you dropped from first to second. Last week's picker went 7-0, so got a chance to redeem yourself right here, Wesley.
Yeah, I'm not worried. He had more games than me, so nothing I can do about that. But yeah. I'm not worried.
Yeah, that's why I got you back here. But now moving on, we got a new picker this week. Really glad we got this guy. Really special picker right here. Super busy guy. On the phone with his agent all week, trying to find a time that works for him. Mr. Luke Lakey. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty honored to be on this very exclusive podcast. So looking forward to it, and just grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. Did I say your last name correct, Luke? Did I say it right?
Yeah, Lakey.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. I know a lot of people mispronounce it, so I just want to make sure. But all right, it's conference championship week. Huge weekend of football coming up. A lot of these games have playoff implications on them. First one we're going to look at here is in the Sun Belt. Personally, I love the Sun Belt Conference. A lot of people, I think, discredit it just because there's not a lot of good teams in it. I love the Sun Belt. You got Troy, James Madison, Marshall, App State. Anyway, this game specifically in the championship game is Troy versus James Madison. James Madison is so much better than Troy in every aspect except one. The question is going to be is will James Madison hurt themselves? Because that one aspect that they're not better than Troy it's the one issue with James Madison is that they haven't been very good from penalty yards perspective. From that standpoint, they lose an average of 70 yards a game from penalties. So they should win this game unless they hurt themselves by negating first downs with penalties. Getting a penalty and getting out of field goal range, things like that. If they hurt themselves this game versus Troy may take advantage of that. I've got James Madison in this one. I don't think they're like the spreads like James Madison 22.5. I've got the wrong spreads. Those spreads are from last week. Forgot to change them, but the spreads James Madison minus 22.5. So they're favored by over 3 touchdowns. I think James Madison's just too much. Just got too much against Troy. So I've got James Madison in this one.
I like it, Tingle. I as well have James Madison. I'm going to be honest here. I have not watched a single game of Troy or James Madison this whole season.
Yeah.
But PFT from Barstool is went to JMU, so I'm rooting for the Dukes in this one.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I don't really see this game being close whatsoever. I think JMU will easily take care of business. Kind of hurts me to say I was a big Troy rebuild guy in NCAA, but going James Madison all the way here, they hold their opponents. Their opponents only convert 30% of third downs, pretty significant. So I don't see it with their offensive wagon and then just their defensive abilities. I don't think it's going to be close. James Madison all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, good pick there with Troy on NCAA rebuild, Luke. I like that a lot. And I do have the wrong. I just want to point this out before we move on. I do have the wrong spreads at the bottom of the screen. I forgot to change them. Not sure how all 100,000s of viewers are gonna like that, but it's no big deal. We're just having fun here. All right, next game we got the American Conference. This game is the Mean Green versus the Green Wave. The North Texas Green Wave versus Tulane, or the North Texas Mean Green versus the Tulane Green Wave. What I looked at in this game specifically is North Texas's passing game. Their passing game has been phenomenal all year for them, and Tulane has a major defensive weakness, and that defensive weakness is their passing defense. They give up almost 250 passing yards every single game. They're ranked 121st in pass defense in the country, and that's great versus below average. Tulane's passing or North Texas's passing game is great, whereas Tulane's passing defense is below average. And that's a huge problem for Tulane in my eyes. The main problem for Tulane's secondary is that the rest of the defense may not get pressure on the quarterback, and those DBs can't stay in coverage for all that long. So they're going to have to get pressure, and the more pressure they have, the less time the quarterback or the less time their cornerbacks are on an island to guard those North Texas receivers. But I think North Texas' O-line kind of holds up a good bit. I've got North Texas. Give me the Mean Green.
Yeah, Tingle, I'm going Mean Green too. That was my dynasty team in college football, so I got that connection there. But I just think looking at both these teams' seasons, they both have had respectable seasons in their conference. But I think out of both these teams, Tulane has the worst loss of the season. They lost to UTSA by 22 points. Mm-hmm. I think that's the worst loss by either team. North Texas had a pretty bad one too to USF, but I think they played better in that game than the score tells. And just overall, looking at the two teams against each other, I think North Texas is going to blow them out of the water offensively. You talked about passing yardage, but their rushing offense is nothing to look over either. They got great rushing yardage and scoring, and they are the highest scoring offense in college. So I just think it's going to be hard to keep up with, and I don't think that Tulane will do so.
Yeah, to kind of ride the wave here, I'm also going to go with, well, not literally, but I'm also going to go with North Texas in this one. We're looking at a very powerful offense, over 500 yards per game, over 5 yards per carry. And one of the biggest stats that kind of stuck out to me was at one point during the season, they completed on 93% of red zone trips. It's a pretty significant margin. Definitely a spot that you want to be efficient, and they are efficient. They're effective. I think North Texas is going to take this one.
Yeah. All right, and one thing I want to point out before we move on from this one is both of these teams, their head coach is taking a different job at the end of the year. John Summerall is going to Florida, and North Texas' head coach is going to, I believe, Oklahoma State. But I believe both of them are still coaching their respective teams in their conference championship game, so that'll be interesting to see. And like you said, Wesley, like Tulane, like they always find a way to lose games that they shouldn't. And I saw that with John Summerall when he was at Troy. Before he was at Tulane, he was at Troy. But they would always somehow make it to the Sun Belt, to the conference championship game, and they won it like 2 or 3 years in a row at Troy. So, Summerall can find a way to win these conference championship games, but I'm running with the Mean Green of North Texas. All right, next we got the Big 12 championship game. This one's BYU, the BYU Cougars versus the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. This one has, this championship game right here has a lot of effect on, I believe, on the SEC, specifically for Alabama. Because if BYU wins this game, I'm not sure that, and Alabama loses the SEC championship, I'm not sure that we get in the playoffs. BYU would be a, automatic. Well, not automatic bid this year, but they're probably going to be a top 4 seed if they win the Big 12. Same thing with Texas Tech. If they win the Big 12, they'll be a top 4 seed. But if Texas Tech loses, BYU gets that top 4 seed, and I don't think the committee is going to drop out Texas Tech. And then, you're looking at a 3-loss Bama team. So if the Cougars pull this one out, I'm going to be rooting hard for Texas Tech this game. But Texas Tech this year, they've had few weaknesses. They've been one of the most balanced teams in this conference all year, one of the most balanced teams in college football. They've got a lot of NIL money, that oil money. They're exceptionally good at linebacker. Jacob Rodriguez is one of the best in the sport. They have the number 1 run defense in the country. That their defensive line is scary. I think I've said it on 2 or 3 other episodes on this channel that their Texas Tech's D-line, their first string and second string guys from last year are now 3rd and 4th because they retained those guys and then they went into the portal and got guys who are even better. So they're deep on the D-line, on the defensive line, which is why they have the number 1 ranked run defense in the country. They rolled over BYU the first time they faced each other. The only way I see BYU changing that narrative from last game and winning this one is by establishing a much better run game, which I think is going to be hard to do. Like I said, Texas Tech has the number 1 run defense in the country. I just think Texas Tech's personnel's just too much for BYU for the Cougars. So I've got the Red Raiders. Patrick Mahomes alumni, former college here.
Yeah, so I picked Texas Tech earlier in the year when I was on the podcast, and I kind of I nailed my read on that game.
I think it was the BYU game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was. I picked BYU Texas earlier, and I had a pretty good read on that game, and so I feel like I got to go Tech again here. It's hard to beat a team twice, but I just think that Tech defense is hard to match up with, and just looking at their season they've had, their only losses to what I think was a pretty good ASU team, and their wins were just so dominant. Their lowest point differential win was 22 points. So I just think that team, they're going to keep it going, and I think they're going to probably not roll over the Cougars like they did the first time, but I think they will come out here with a win.
Yeah, rematch game here. After watching the first one, seems like Tech had an answer for everything BYU was trying to throw at them. I really thought that Tech was just a great match for BYU, and I think that proved itself in the first time around. I'm going to pick Tech second time around here, just because that defensive factor. Their defense is so fast. They're physical on the D-line, as Tingle touched on. And then lastly, they hold teams to 12 points a game. You can't win a game with 12 points, especially with that Tech offense. They can hold their own. So I definitely see Tech here and taking this one again, earn themselves a top 4 seed in the college football playoff.
All right. Moving on next, we got the ACC. This conference has been terrible all year. I don't think this conference deserves a team to be in the playoffs. If they do, I think it's Miami. I don't think it's either team that's playing for this conference championship, which is Virginia and Duke. Like I said, if BYU beats Texas Tech, I honestly think that the ACC team should not get in. They should, I'm being a little bit biased with Alabama, but, if we lose and BYU wins, then I think we should get in over the ACC team. The ACC has just been so bad this year. But anyway, if Virginia wins this game, they're in the playoffs more than likely. If Duke wins, who's 7-5, by the way, they're a 7-5 football team playing in their conference championship game, which points on how bad the ACC is, like I said. But if Duke wins, then there's a possibility that 2 G5 teams gets in. We could see whoever wins versus Tulane and North Texas get in, and then if James Madison wins the Sun Belt, James Madison could get in. So, but anyway, let's talk about this game specifically. The quarterback play at Virginia has been okay this year. Chandler Morris, he's been all right. He's a good quarterback. He's thrown for 2,400 yards, over 15 touchdowns. But do I think he's the reason they're winning football games? Not really. I think it's more of the run game of why they're winning football games with Jamari Taylor. He's been a huge difference maker. He's got almost 1,000 yards rushing this season. He's got good power, good speed, takes care of the football, which is a very important aspect that gets overlooked at running back. The offense kind of runs through him, right? So he gets involved in the pass game also, and then like I said, Chandler Morris, he's an okay quarterback. He's not great, but he can get it done in the run game too. So I think Virginia's going to try to get it done on the ground in this game. They've got some playmakers at wide receiver too, but ultimately I think they go with the ground and pound, and I don't think Duke's not going to be able to stop them. Earlier in the year, they beat Duke 34-17 in the regular season. I think it's going to be very similar in this game. And then so I've got the Cavaliers in this one, and then maybe there's some money behind doors that the ACC's thrown at Duke to let Virginia win, so they for sure get a team in the playoffs. Who knows? But, yeah, I've got Virginia.
Yeah, just looking at this game, I don't think it's going to be a bad game, but I just looking at this game having playoff implications is pretty gross. I think both these teams are not very good. The only reason Virginia got ranked in the first place was they beat Florida State off of a bobbled catch in the end zone. That I think the refs kind of blew the call on that one. But either way, the questionable call got them ranked, and then they just stayed there because they beat their bad opponents they played. I think both the ACC teams that aren't in this game would definitely perform better in the playoffs, like Georgia Tech and Miami. But obviously, it's not going to happen. I think Miami's the only team that has a chance to get in. Virginia, unfortunately, if they win, I think both the Group of 5 teams that could get in would perform better than Virginia, honestly. But I'm going with Virginia here just because I can't see a 7-5 team winning this, and I can't see anyone let that happen. I don't think they'll get paid to lose the game, but I just don't think that there's a world where Duke wins this game and has talks about a 7-5 team in the playoffs. So I have the Cavaliers here.
Yeah, to keep a common theme, I'm also going to pick Virginia in this one. I personally like Virginia and their offensive attack. I think they're really balanced. They're great in terms of holding the clock, holding the ball. I mean, they mix it up well. They run the play action pretty well. I think they're good in that aspect. They run the ball a lot a game, like 40 attempts. But really, I mean, it's been working for them. They've been taking care of who they needed to. I think it's another game where they just got to take care of it. I think they'll beat Duke. Playoffs, we'll see what happens from there. It depends on how great the win is, but I do think they'll take care of Duke this week.
All right. It'll be a shame if sorry to cut you off too. It'll be a shame if Virginia makes the playoffs, though.
Yeah.
No one wants to see that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if an ACC team does make it, like, Miami's way more deserving, in my opinion.
There's no shot Georgia Tech's going to make it, but like there was a 1-score game against Georgia. Like, they held their own against Georgia. Like, it's just, you can't put them in there because their last game is a loss and stuff. But I think both those teams, like you guys just said, it's brutal.
Another team that I don't think, and I think maybe they should be in, but I don't think they should be ranked as high as they are, is Notre Dame. But that would be it's Notre Dame's birthright to get into the playoffs. So very controversial.
Were early too, and the committee cares so much about when your loss was.
Yeah.
Like
Notre Dame's getting hot right now.
No, I'm saying the losses were at the beginning. So the committee doesn't care about them anymore. Which I agree. I think Notre Dame is a good team.
Bias growing up a fan, but they're talking about run game. Fighting Irish play, but I like them this year.
All right, let's go on to the Big Ten championship here. We got 2 left: the Big Ten and the SEC. Obviously, saving the best conference for last. So let's do Big Ten first. Ohio State, Indiana, number 1 versus number 2 here. College Gameday decided not to go here. They decided to go to the SEC championship game, even though it's number 1 versus number 2. But it's under the lights in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. 1 versus 2, Ryan Day versus Kurt Cignetti, Sayin versus Mendoza. I think this is going to be a really good game. Finally, these teams play a real opponent. They kind of anyway. Indiana hasn't won a conference championship game since 1945, and half the players in college football were overseas in Germany or Japan. So, anyway, when you look at the schedules of these two teams, a lot of people think Ohio State has played the better schedule all year. But believe it or not, Indiana's strength of schedule is slightly better than Ohio State's. They've had common opponents. Ohio State beat Purdue 34-0. Indiana beat them 56-3. Both beat Illinois. Ohio State beat them convincingly. Well, Indiana drummed them. Both beat UCLA pretty comfortably. And then there's some signature wins on both sides. Ohio State beat Texas and Michigan. Indiana beat Oregon on the road. So, they've played a couple teams here and there. So both are battle tested a little bit. Especially, I think it kind of prepared them a lot for this game since it's 1 versus 2. The key for Indiana though is can they disrupt Julian Sayin? Julian Sayin is well above 80% completion rate when he has a clean pocket. But if they can get some pressure on him, that number drops a pretty good bit. I can't see it that Indiana goes single coverage with Jeremiah Smith also. But if they put double coverage on them, then you've got single coverage on Carnell Tate on the other side. So I think these teams match up well, but I think Ohio State's going to expose Indiana a little bit this week. I just don't think Indiana is all that people think they are. Ohio State's been number 1 all year since that Texas game, pretty much. So I've got the Buckeyes in this one.
Yeah, Tingle, going a little off your point there where you're like comparing the scores, I think that's a lot of it has to do with Cignetti just doesn't care. Yeah. I think he's a guy who Indiana's not stat padding, but like Kurt Cignetti was one of those guys where he wants to mount the score on you.
Yeah.
So I think that has something to do with like the difference in scores because I don't think the skill is that different between these two opponents. I picked Ohio State here. I kind of want Indiana to win. I got some family ties to Indiana, and also I'm just not a big OSU guy, but I think
me either.
Ohio State wins this. What's up?
I said me either. I'm not an Ohio State guy either.
Yeah, I don't know many people who are, unless people who could go there, but just Ohio State dominated Michigan defensively in their matchup, and I think that keeps going. They got, Arvo Reese and Caleb Downs are 2 NFL-ready players. I think they are just so good. And that whole defense is complete in itself. I just think that matchup nightmares that on offense, like you said, they just, if they choose to double cover one of them, then, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, the other one will torch you. And so they decide to, play more coverage than Sands got time. You could find, Bo Jackson, their tight ends. Like, everyone gets involved in that offense.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have to be those 2 receivers, but I just think Ohio State has too much this year. I think they're better than they were last year, even, which is crazy to say. But I think Ohio State wins this one.
Yeah, I'm also not a big Ohio State, not a big Ryan Day fan, but I still will be picking the Buckeyes in this one. The team is dominant. A lot of talk is always on the offense. Julius Sayin being right up there with a Heisman candidate, and then Jeremiah Smith, of course. There are other weapons that they have on offense. They do a great job taking care of the football, high completion percentage. But really, in this team, I see it a lot in their defense. I think we're looking at one of the best, if not the best, defense in college football, holding opponents to an average of like 207 yards per game. It's pretty impressive. Indiana hadn't seen much adversity this year, aside from that Penn State game. So I don't know how they'll handle it. And I think they're going to be down to start the game. And I just don't think they'll ever be able to recover. Give me Ohio State.
Yeah. Just one thing I want to add. You were talking about Caleb Downs, Wesley. Do you know where he transferred from to Ohio State?
Oh, Caleb Downs. Where did he? Tingle. Let me. Where was it, Tingle? I don't know.
It was the University of Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And then Luke, you were talking about Julian Sayin. Do you know where he transferred from to Ohio State?
Not Auburn.
Mm-mm.
Not Troy.
Mm-mm.
Another college from the state.
Was it UAB?
Shelton?
No, it was the University of Alabama. So that's all I wanted to point out right there. You're welcome, Ohio State. Anyway, 2 best players. All right, here we go. The Southeastern Conference Championship. Best conference in college football. That's not biased at all. In no way, shape, or form. There's no bias, no discrimination on this show. 3 p.m. Central Time. This is a huge opportunity, in my opinion, for Coach Kalen DeBoer to kind of establish a new era at Alabama. It's all been about Nick Saban ever since Nick Saban was hired here in like 2008, whenever it was. It's been all about Nick Saban, and then even last year in DeBoer's first year, it's been about Saban, and he still gets people still comparing him to Saban now. It's like he's not going to be Saban. That narrative needs to go, but this is a chance for DeBoer to put all that to rest and establish a new era if he can win this game. But Georgia's peaking at a great time right now. They've looked phenomenal the last 4 to 5 weeks. Their defense has improved drastically since the last time we played them. But so has ours a little bit. What's going to determine this game? Georgia's run game is one thing. If they can get the ground game going, unlike they did the first time around when they played us, then we could see a little bit of a different outcome, I think. And then one question I have is can we attack their secondary again like we did? Early in the season, Ty was unreal in this game, probably the best game he's had all season, and that was a long time ago. So we've got to connect on those deep balls that we've missed all year. Really, we missed. He missed a couple versus LSU. He missed a couple versus Tennessee. He barely missed Bernard versus Auburn. He did connect with one versus Georgia, but Ryan Williams dropped it. And the Bernard and Ryan Williams one would have both been touchdowns. So, and then also, how much will we rely on running the football in this game? We don't know if Jam Miller's going to play. The last time we saw him, he was on crutches and Jordan Hare. But we have to stay committed to the run game, whether that's with Daniel Hill or Kevin Riley if he goes, or true freshman Kalen A.K. Deere. We're going to have to establish some type of run game, just a little bit even, because then that might force a safety into the box, and then we can take advantage of those matchups against their secondary, like I was talking about with Bernard or maybe Hollywood or Horton or Lottie Brooks, maybe even Rico Scott. But we got to establish some type of run game to even give us a chance on those deep balls or and things like that to give us that matchup that we want to try to hit on. So we got to have some type of run game, whatever that may look like, and whoever it might look like with. And then whether or not we convert on third down is going to be another critical thing in this game. We were 13 for 19 on third down last game. That's a 68% conversion rate. I think the national average is like 40%. And then Georgia's defense typically allows less than 30%. So the fact we doubled up on what Georgia normally does was massive. It allowed us to extend drives and kind of demoralize Georgia's defense last time we played them. So if we can do that again, that would be huge. And then lastly, the turnovers. I said on last week's episode that the Auburn game was going to come down to turnovers, just like it did. It was going to versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma was plus 3 in the turnover margin versus us, and that's why they ended up winning the game. We were plus 2 in the turnover margin versus Auburn. That's why we won. I think that's another thing that's going to come into play this weekend. We're a very opportunistic team. Our defense has made crucial turnover after crucial turnover all year when we needed to. We had one versus South Carolina, 2 versus Auburn. That were just critical when we needed them. And we have a turnover margin of plus 8 on the year. So the only two games we weren't leading the turnover margin was the Florida State game and the Oklahoma game. So I've got Bama. Obviously, I'm a little bit nervous. They're saying if we don't win, we might not make the playoffs. So huge things riding on this game. Huge implications. But I got to go with the Tide. I got to roll with it.
Yeah, so just I'll get out of the way. I went Georgia with this one. I hedged a little bit, which sucks, but I did go the Georgia Bulldogs. I think, the domination, the winning, that's got to come to an end eventually. I think it happens this game. I just think our run game is not there. I know we got, these guys who are promising. Like we got Hill, we got that freshman, but I just think we don't have it all together yet. Our linemen are they're not out there moving in the run game. I think we need that. We need that running identity that Alabama's always had. We need that back to win these games like this. So I think that's really going to hurt us. A big part that I haven't really heard people talk about too much. I think we really need Cuevas back, our tight end for this game. He is a huge target for Ty, especially on third down. He is, I think, heavily underrated. He's, chain mover. He does not drop the ball. I think he'll be a great run after catch. He'll be a guy I really hope we get back for this game, and I think he could actually be a game changer if he's able to come back. Looking at Georgia's season, they've had some pretty sloppy scores at points. Like that Auburn game does not have a pretty score. The Georgia Tech game does not have a pretty score. But Texas. I think they find ways to win these games, and I think in this game they continue to do so. I think this is one that will have a close score, but I think the Bulldogs pull away with this. I have belief that Alabama can very well win if Ty plays like how he did against Georgia the first time, how he played against Wisconsin, how he played against these teams in the first half of the season. I think we win this game. But what we've seen lately, all like you said, the misses on the deep balls, it scares me a little bit. And he's starting to miss short routes too. He does not look comfortable in the pocket. I sound like I'm hating right now, but I'm just,
No, you're being real.
Nervous about this. Say it again?
I said you're being real. It's just.
I'm nervous. I'm very nervous about this game. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I really hope I'm wrong. But what I've seen lately, watching Georgia and watching us, I think Georgia looks more confident out there, on both sides of the ball, to be honest. So I'm okay with how our defense played against Auburn. Honestly, we had that one drive where we caused 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
And then finally got the interception at the end. But I think our defense is going to come out strong when they need to. But unfortunately, I do have the Bulldogs in this one.
Yeah. Before you go, Luke, one thing I want to say, Wesley, is you said you haven't heard anybody talk about Josh Cuevas being out. If you want to go back and watch this episode, I think somebody, very knowledgeable person, says it on this episode. But anyway.
Great. Well, I mean, it's not out yet, so I haven't been able to watch.
Yeah.
So.
But, you're right. We had a bunch of different guys that we had
two minds think alike.
Yeah.
Minds think alike.
Right, that's right. We had 2 true freshmen in, Marshall Pritchett and Caleb Edwards. We had Jay Lindsey. I think he transferred from either Troy or UAB. I think it was Troy, but yeah, it was obvious the impact that we had not having him. So, but anyway, go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, looking at this game, face value, I think it's going to be a defensive battle here. I can't say Georgia's offense has been firing all cylinders, and Alabama certainly hasn't looked like Alabama these past couple of games. So I definitely think the under hits here. Not gambling advice, but I do think it'll be a very low-scoring game. Alabama defense holding teams to right around 15 points per game. Georgia, somewhat the same. Really, it's going to come down to who can do better offensively, but it's not going to be an offensive shootout, like I'm saying. So it's going to be a big defensive battle in the first half, or the first time these two teams played. Alabama kind of had an answer to everything Georgia was throwing at them again, and they always seem to be in control. Hopefully it's the same for this one. I'm going to pick Alabama just from the fact that I think the past couple times these teams have played, Alabama's just edged them out. I think they looked like they wanted to be out there more. Obviously, SEC championship game, a lot on the line, but really the Tide have been winning games like this. I think it's a great game. Bounce back offensively. I think the defense will stay in control. They've been great all year, and give me Alabama in this one.
Yeah. I like what you said about it seems like we've wanted it more, because that's kind of a point I didn't really think about how, I mean, especially going to this game, it is the SEC championship. Obviously, everyone's going to be trying, but Georgia knows they're in. They're in this playoffs no matter what, and we're not. So that's not something I thought about, but I think these guys going in, they know they have to put on a show to make these playoffs. So I think, honestly, hopefully that'll help them. Yeah,
I mean, I completely agree. Georgia, they didn't really look, like you said, I think it was you, Wesley, they didn't look all that great versus when they played Auburn. They didn't look all that great when they played Texas, I think we have more of a chance than people are letting on, but, you also said earlier, it's hard to beat a team twice. It's hard. It's tough to beat a team twice, and it's even harder to beat them 3 times. So, and then one thing I'm kind of thinking is if we do win, do we get a bye, or do you guys think we get a first round we host?
It depends. Tech. If Tech wins, they'll get a bye for sure. So I mean, I think whoever loses, Indiana, Ohio State, unless it's a blowout, that other team who loses will stay in. So I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't think we jump. Maybe we'll jump Ole Miss, but would we jump Oklahoma? I don't know. So
I do think we would get a bye. I think it'd be OSU, Indiana, Tech, and I think we slide in at the 4th spot. I do think we jump Ole Miss just because of the Kiffin news. I think we jump Oregon. I don't think they've looked all that impressive this year, so I think we jump them too in terms of that. I think we jump Oklahoma with just more impressive wins. So all in all, I do think we would get a bye. I would say if we lose, that's a lot different story. We'll see what happens there. That'd be really interesting for the committee to make, but hopefully they don't have that decision to make.
Yeah, but, gotta go win it first before any of that happens.
Yeah.
So, and then, even if we don't, that like I said, that Big 12 championship game could hurt us, kind of like the ACC championship game did last year. But anyway, that's all I've got, unless you guys want to add anything else. These are I'm going to put the standings of our guest pickers on here right now. We got Clay Dolan at 7-0. In first, Wesley Davis 5-0. In second, J Dobbs 7-1. Cole Pearson coming in at 14-4. Myself 24-15. Solomon Arnold 4-3, and Emery Wagner in 7th 3-3. So we'll see how you stand up after this week, Luke, and then Wesley. We'll get yours updated also. So we'll see how it works out.
Great.
All right, you guys got anything else?
Really appreciate you having us on today, Tingle. Yeah. It was a blast. So we'll see how these games turn out, but thankful for the opportunity.
Let's go. Exciting weekend ahead. I checked my watch during the Iron Bowl game. My heart rate got up to 118. I was just sitting on the couch. So I kind of expected to.
I had to stand. By the end.
I expect it to maybe I'm in the 130s for this game. That's how nervous I am about it. Might not sleep the night before, might not eat the day of. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's all I got. Appreciate you guys being on. I know life's busy, so especially for you, Luke. But yeah, anyway, that's all I've got. All right.
All right. Appreciate it again. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we hope to see you next week. And Roll Tide.